Hello, all you friends, you neighbors, you family, you comrades, sisters, and brothers, wherever you may be, you citizens of the world. Welcome to another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. And I'm Michael James. Once again, I'm here in Chicago. And this show is for the week of February 11th in the year 2023. And it is number 189 since the beginning of the pandemic. And I'm really glad to say that our first guest, so to speak, sometimes a co-host, sometimes a co-producer, is the one and only Katy Hogan, and we're glad to have her here today. She's working hard to reelect a certain alderwoman, and we appreciate all that Katy does, and I'm really so happy that she decided she would join us today. Good morning.
It's always nice to see you, Michael, even in this configuration.
Let's just start off. We're going to do about 10, 15 minutes of what we call our banter, which are little bits of things and information that we think is of interest to you listeners and viewers. And I want to start off by just saying we're really, it's just shocking what has happened in Turkey and Syria with this earthquake. You know, I think about it now, there's close to 20,000 people are dead, and that number will go up. It's not quite that high yet, but it really is quite a terrible situation, both in Turkey and in the northern part of Syria. We'll keep you posted on it and efforts, but I encourage everybody to pay attention. It's just, it's kind of a warning about things that could happen to a lot of people anywhere in the world.
We have no concept here of the kind of tragedy, the scope of tragedy that these people are undergoing, because so much of what was just affected by this immense activity, two different 7+ on the seismic measurement size earthquakes, one in Turkey, one in Syria, where there are thousands and thousands of people living in refugee conditions and have been for years. And we have no concept. And so I don't know what to say except that, really.
Well, that's a lot. And let's, there's a lot going on in the Middle East and with Israel and Palestine. We have a new right-wing government, the most right-wing government ever in Israel. And I did get a little bit of information from J Street. I'm going to read a little bit of it. As supporters of Israeli democracy and advocates of Israeli-Palestinian peace, we see this as a time of crisis. With boiling resentment in the occupied West Bank and Netanyahu's far-right government intent on inflaming things further, a dire situation has gotten worse. They go on, but I just want to call people's attention to the situation. Pay attention to what's going on in Israel. It's not good. And on another international front, I'm going to go here now, talk about Peru. Congress in Peru has voted once again against bringing the general elections forward to December of 2023. Many of you know that Pedro Castillo, the peasant bus driving union organizer who was elected president, was really restrained by the Congress. He tried to oust the Congress. He got ousted himself. His successor, Dina Boluarte, who is kind of a progressive, hasn't been real good, but she is calling for the elections to happen earlier. A little bit of the specifics of what's going on the street, so to speak. Peru is the biggest copper mine. Their biggest copper mines have been able to continue their production while attacks and protests have roiled the Andean nation for 2 months. There is prediction that the world's number 2 copper producer, while it has continued to do their mining, a source close to one major mine said the risk of stoppages are rising. So that's happening. Little bit of good news. I want to share what I got in the mail. I got 2 things in the mail, and this is one of the most beautiful books I've ever seen. It's by a guy named Baldwin Lee, and Baldwin Lee is a Chinese American, born in New York, raised in Chinatown. He's probably about 70 years old, was educated at MIT and at Yale. He studied with some famous photographers, including Walker Evans at Yale. And I really, not only the picture's beautiful, but I kind of like the way he goes about it. He would see people, he lives in the South, he lives in, I think, Knoxville, somewhere in Tennessee now. And he would see people in the South and he would just go up to them and sort of start talking and eventually to ask if he could take their picture. And he would pose them a little bit. So you have all these scenes of people hanging out and he'd say, oh, that's a nice pose. Maybe move a little this way or that way. But he'd get them to kind of relax. And it is a gorgeous book. I hadn't known about this fellow before. Baldwin Lee, check him out. And on another front with the Mail, the 50th year issue of The Sun. And those of you who've listened or watched this show before know that we love The Sun. We love the photographs, the short stories. And Katy has actually hung out with The Sun people. And you went to a workshop there once, I think.
Yeah, no, two of them I went to. At one in the Sun magazine got me to Big Sur finally after we sold the Heartland. That was a lovely visit. And I also got to go to Asheville, North Carolina, and the environs above it, Boone, for another one of their writing workshops. Yeah, we love the Sun. Bless them. Long may they wave.
A little bit more on photography. This may be a little bit self-serving, but I am really happy to announce that Yuri Eichen asked me, their theme is imperialism, and they asked me to put together a show. So I have been working on a presentation of what I call border crossings or crossing borders about Mexico, Nicaragua, and Cuba. And that will be opening on March 10th, a Friday night, down at Yuri Eichen Gallery, 2200 South Halsted. And if you really can't wait to see my stuff, Scout at 5300 North Clark has a number of my photographs, as do the Common Cup and Archie's, two wonderful places here in Chicago in the 49th Ward. I'm also in the Cultural Center downtown, the old library. So that's it if you want to see Michael James photos. Katy, I'm going to turn it over to you for a little bit about the election coming up and the Network 49 endorsement session.
Michael, you got to know that all your friends are really proud of your photography know-how, and that what did you call it? A little self-serving announcement. I mean, look, you've got photos in 4 places currently around the city, including the Cultural Center downtown. You rock, dude. You rock.
I'm working at it. I appreciate it. And all the support that I get from you and a lot of other people.
All right. So yeah, it's voting season in Chicago. If it is a season that once had freezing cold temperatures and 5 feet of snow, yes, it's election time. Unfortunately, for those who originally scheduled those kinds of elections, hoping it would dull the turnout, we have climate change seasons now. We don't know what is ever going to happen, but right now it's actually sunny and kind of mild. So we're coming up on February 28th is the municipal election. In every ward, I believe there are some places where there are no opponents, but that is not the case in most wards. There are races in most of the 50 wards in Chicago, which, if we were talking about reinventing government, we might look at having 30 wards, but it's not a very popular thing to say to my politically elected.
Now you push it though. I would go for 100 wards.
I know you would. Anyway, and actually, as it stands, each ward is supposed to have 55,000 people in it, and there's only a couple of wards in the city, I can name them, but I won't, that have always registered as many of their adult citizens as they can, and we are not one of them. So, and there are many that fall way below us as well. So right now, the municipals include this rather interesting mayoral race. Lori Lightfoot is running for her office for re-election. She's got her biggest opponents right now, if we just start off with it, are Paul Vallis and Chuy Garcia. She's got a lot of hungry youngins at her heels. Brandon Johnson is the chosen of the more left and, of course, the Chicago Teachers Union, but voters who have in the past organized themselves in pretty strong numbers to turn out a vote for their candidate in the prior, which was 8 years ago, Chuy Garcia. Yeah, Michael.
I was going to say that in addition to the mayoral race, and we're going to have Don Rose on shortly, and he's going to give us his perspective on the mayoral race. There are also election going on for city clerk, city treasurer, city council. I don't know if there's any really congested or competition in those. And then there are the police district councils. For each police district, we elect 3 people to the new police district councils. And we've had a number of people on talking about that. If you check out last week on youtube.com/heartlandmedia/videos, you can see Marilyn Pagan Banks, who is a candidate here in the 24th district. And then we also had Joe Osbaker and Frank Chapman talking about citywide work on these police community oversight boards. Kate, do you want to talk about the Network 49 forum we're going to have? Just let people know.
Sure. We will do the Network 49 mayoral endorsement, which is always pretty highly engaged in process by us. And because of all the candidates, I think that'll happen again. We have sent out questionnaires to all the candidates. We got them back from 5. Those 5 candidates will be we will consider on our ranked choice ballot on the 15th. It's going to be a Zoom meeting, which is open to the public of 49th Ward. However, ballots will only be sent to our membership as a result. So, and to get the results, sorry. I am completely fascinated what will happen because of the fact that we did not get results or questionnaires back, from either the mayor or Mr. Paul Vallis. They will not be on the ballot. And I'm interested to hear what our membership thinks of that and how we strategize. And indeed, Chicago voters need to strategize. If you don't want one of those 2 that I've named, you're going to have to pull ourselves together. And so I look forward to that happening within 3 weeks.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. And I'm going to do now a thing I'm calling comebacks. We did report on the High Ridge Y getting money to reopen. It'll take a few years. We also reported recently on the metro station at the Lunch in Ravenswood going to get rebuilt. And today I learned through the Block Club, which is a really good source of information, that the Congress Theater, which is in crumbles and has been supposedly being revived, still has a long way to go. And there's a story about it, but it is a gem. And of course, it makes me wonder about what's going to happen with the great old Uptown Theater in Uptown. But that's enough on comebacks. I'm going to give you a quick labor report. I've been looking at a thing called Payday Report, a guy named Mike Melk, and it's paydayreport.com. He had a list of various things going on in labor around the world. German postal workers to strike over plans to raise the retirement age. Air traffic controllers are on strike at 16 Spanish airports. And you'll remember when the traffic controllers went on strike here and Reagan busted the strike, and we've had a kind of a right-leaning government ever since on many of the 4-year periods that the government changes. And also on the labor front, the head of Hollywood's Teamsters, Local 399, urges members to save up for the event of a strike. 1,500 sharp Grossmont hospital workers vote to unionize in San Diego. And it goes on. The Portland City workers declare victory after a 12-hour strike. Sonic drive-in workers strike in South Carolina. And here in Illinois, Archer Daniel Midland workers are striking. So stay tuned. A couple of quick things. One more quick thing. LeBron James, what a hell of a guy. Not only a great basketball player, but a humanitarian. He is now the leading scorer of all time, surpassing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on Tuesday when the Lakers, I think, beat Oklahoma City. That's it for this week's banter. I want to thank Katy for coming on and chatting with us. And I don't know if you want to stick around or not, but we'll be right back after a musical break when we bring on Don Rose. And we're going to talk about the State of the Union address that happened on Tuesday night, as well as the upcoming Chicago elections. Don't go too far. Stay tuned here on the left end of your dial. Welcome back to more Live from the Heartland for the week of February 11th. And I've talked Katy Hogan into sticking around. And we're going to bring on our friend Don Rose now, who has predicted every election correctly except that one. I've repeated this back in 2016 that we all missed on. Good afternoon to you, Don.
How are you?
We're good. How are you, Kate? You still good?
I'm still good. Hi, nice to see you, Don.
I haven't seen you in a long time. Good to see you.
Yep.
So I assume that both of you watched the State of the Union address by our President Biden. And what, Don, was your impression of the speech in general and any particular highlights or specifics you want to bring to our attention?
Well, first of all, I think it was there were not a lot of surprises in the context, but it was delivered very energetically, much more energetically, and at points slightly combatively, which I think was very good. Overall, he brought up his forthcoming slogan for his campaign without exactly saying so, like, let's finish the job. He hit on touchy issues like abortion. We weren't sure whether he was going to do that. And I think the most notable thing was the very clever way he handled the heckling. When he said that the Republicans want to end Medicare and other benefits, Medicaid, what have you. He got a lot of, hey, no, boo, boo, not so, not so. And he said, well, a lot of you do. You've all said it. No, 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 no. Comes the chorus in the back. He says, well, that's good. You don't want to do it. So you're not going to end Medicaid. You're not going to put that on the table. You're not going to put Social Security on the table. That's terrific. Give yourselves a great big hand. So it was
brilliant. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was in a way more than I expected from him, but it was just terrific.
And Don, it right before that, I thought brilliant turnaround of things when he, as you said, he said, "Oh, good. So I see we agree. Social Security, Medicaid is off the table. Medicare is off the table." But in addition to that, I get this feeling more and more when I watch our SOTU and other. Are we getting more like the British Parliament, where people just yell freely at one another?
Well, this is a continuing degeneration for the State of the Union speech. It was known for its decorum up to the Obama, I forget whether it was second or third, a speech where somebody yelled out, "You lie!" Some obscure congressman who had his moment of glory there, and that was the first anybody knew about it. I think the Republicans themselves were confounded. Of course, that was a different kind of Republican leadership and different kind of Republican Party at that time. So we did not know that was going to start to set a trend. I think we haven't quite reached the point where we're yelling back and forth the way the British do when they're having their parliamentary meetings, which I kind of like that.
Let me share a quote with you both that I got from I think Charlie Meyerson sent something to Tom Clark, and Tom sent it to us. It says Rex Huppke, Huppke of USA Today. He said he's talking about the Republicans last night. He says that Biden they ran at Biden. They ran at him like a pack of lemmings, and with a wink and a grin, he politely directed them to the cliff.
Well, it was wonderful, and It's hard to say. Maybe they had this all planned out. It seemed, I guess they could count on some commentary, yelling or whatever, on the issue of whether they're going to cut off Medicare. So it could have been planned out, but it looked perfectly spontaneous. And even if it was planned out, that's great. At least they know what they're dealing with. And this is the kind of thing I associate, frankly, with Ron Klain, who unfortunately is leaving as chief of staff. I have more respect for him than anybody in that whole damn administration. And I think it's too bad he's leaving. But he's the one who has kept Biden looking as vital as he can and generally performing well. There's just, he does have still a few minor infirmities, which are always exaggerated by the other side. But I'm sure it was Klain who got Biden away from having his head down when he's speaking and all this kind of thing. So I hope the new guy can keep him, about whom I don't really know very much, can keep things on the same keel. He's been very, very well advised, and he's kept everything shipshape. I think he's only lost one and maybe a second very recently during the whole 2 years that he's served thus far. So, the administration looks good. And obviously...
do you think he's moved more to the left? I saw that somewhere. Do you think that Biden has moved to the left? And
yes.
Where he's strong and where he's not as good on things?
Yeah, I know. I think he's had a more progressive, put it this way, whether he himself has moved or whether he feels the time is right. He has a more progressive administration and laid out proposals than he campaigned on. He did campaign as a more, I can't say a moderate, but a more middle of the road guy, and has adopted, the hero here in a way, short of a couple of items, is Bernie. And, Bernie has inculcated his program of 4 and 8 years ago into the mainstream, and so, yeah, Biden is certainly behaving more that way. He has done some bad acts in the past, particularly around Clarence Thomas and so on. But without going back to that, so he's clearly governing as a progressive, not as a leftist by any means, but certainly as a progressive, which we could not be sure about when we elected him.
Can I ask a question, Michael?
You're up.
Don, I watched with neighbors of mine last night. I watched the State of the Union with neighbors over at somebody else's house, which I was very grateful to be watching it with others and for the back and forth that allows. They're all at least 20 years younger than me and maybe more. And they were basically at the end of it saying, please don't run again. Please don't run again. And I said, I'm afraid he's running. And they have this pretty ageist, view, which I've heard in a lot of quarters right now about that people should just move along. People like Nancy Pelosi and Biden and a number of other aged folks. What do you say to that? Do you have any answer to that? Is it automatic that people should move on, or?
First of all, my opinion is that he's running again until he's not. That he is going to be appraising the situation every 6 months and will be making his decisions based on the time and place and what is going on in the world. and where his stand is. I don't believe if people are saying that they should have a retirement age, they should age out. I don't think that that's a particularly useful idea. It may be that they feel protective. They just don't, or whether they're trying to protect him from what will certainly in the next, were he to be elected in the next year or two, or in the next 2 years, were he to be running, he would be under all kinds of attacks. Every time he hiccuped, they would call it, a mental infirmity, and people don't want to see that happening. I don't think. So there are people who want to protect him. There are people who feel that he would be a sure loser. If that's that's quite possible. The sad thing is the public does not know about, for one reason, or does not appreciate all that he's done. And to have numbers as bad as they are, and as many people not realizing all that he's done or anything he's done in a way, is just a shame. And if it goes that, if he can't sell his accomplishments in the next year, he probably shouldn't run, because people have, it's upside down for sure. But people are frankly ignorant, and it's partly the way things are today with communications, and it's partly the messaging that has failed in the White House.
Let me say that as a guy who's a little older than Biden, I watch him walk, and I'm rooting for him, because I know how sometimes you got the stride, and other times it's like, oh, yeah, how many more years can I hold out? And, so let me just ask this of both of you: who might, if say Biden decides that he really, you start aging a little faster as you get a little older, and if he decides not to run, who would we want to run? Who would be a likely candidate? The only person I could think of that I really liked was this Governor Bashir, I think his name, in Kentucky. And I don't think he's running yet, but I found him an interesting guy. Do either of you have someone out there who you think would be a really good candidate?
Well, I've got a personal favorite, and that's Jamie Raskin. I think he's probably the smartest guy in the Congress, meaning no offense to people like Schiff. I think Schiff would be good, except that he's probably, as I hear, quite a hate symbol. There are a lot of good people there. And I think we'd have to winnow them down. We want to see, first of all, who is really interested in running. There's a lot of interesting guys there. Sheldon Whitehouse, the congressman, the senator.
Yeah, he'd be good.
Elizabeth Warren comes to mind. I'd like to see women in general uplifted as possibilities for president. It's time we covered that one. Leapt over that one, if you will. I have no problem with the people mentioned. I'm interested in that Bashir guy too. Our politics are very strained, and I would be inclined to reelect Biden if I didn't have a strong enough indication from any of the others running. Biden wasn't my choice last time, but I worked my tail off for him at the end. I would say Bernie, because he seems, eternal. But I also do like that John said Bernie's ideas have been inculcated into the scene, and that's the best thing we could hope for, I guess.
I got one other thing I'd like to ask you about, and it is shifting from the global, or at least the national, to the local. And I hope we have you back next week, which will be just before the election here in Chicago. But what is your take on the mayoral race right now? Last time you were on, you said you thought it would be probably Chewy and Vallis in a runoff. Where are you at on that whole thing today?
Well, things haven't changed that much. A couple of polls have come out that have been very scattered. One or two polls suggested that Chewy had been hurt a great deal, but a very well-respected professional poll, independent, came out this morning in the Sun-Times, sponsored by the Sun-Times and BEZ and Telemundo, that shows Chewy slightly ahead of Vallis and Vallis slightly ahead of Laurie, which, although all within the margin of error, tells me one thing for sure, and that I was concerned about, that for all the bashing she has given him, Chewy has been taken down a little bit, but not enough to put him to threaten them out of the game. It's a three-way race with the odds still favoring Chewy and Vallis in the runoff. It could turn out, differently. Some events could change. We don't know what event might occur. Who can predict, especially about the future, as they say. I think that's about where it is, but it is close. Yeah, Chewy is the first one to come up with a property tax reduction or a property tax payback, a benefit there, which I think could be a clincher for him. He's the only one who's come out with that so far. Everybody's against crime. Everybody's got a crime program. The differences among them are very hard to distinguish. And so I think he's got another good leg to run on now. And so my basic estimation is the same as it was last time we spoke, which is a runoff between Chewy and Vallis. And this poll shows that Chewy beats him pretty substantially.
Let me ask, one of the things that about Chewy is he's been running these, and a lot of people have been running these ads about the police, more police, but not a lot of talk about the police, district councils that we're having elections for. Any comment on that? Is it something they don't want to touch? But I mean, Chewy, I would have expected to be more supportive of it. And some of his ads are just, more police.
Well, there's been a complete failure on the part of the media and the candidates to bring that issue up at all. I think there was something in the Trib today or yesterday that was the first real mention of people running. And even the people who tried to organize it and advocate for it before the city council have done virtually nothing to tell us anything about the candidates who are running. I can't tell you in my own ward or my own district, it's beyond the ward, who the stronger advocates are. So I think that's just a failure on all parts. It simply has not made any political impact one way or the other, in absentia or otherwise.
Don Rose, we're going to have you on again next week, I think. We'll see if the mayoral race has changed. We'll try to get some hard-hitting questions ready for you, but we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights, your knowledge, your opinions. And we're on the same page on this one. So hopefully we'll have good news next week about the mayoral race.
I hope so, too. See you then.
Okay. I'm going to say goodbye to you, Don. I'm going to say goodbye to you, Katie. And I'm going to be taking a little short musical break. We're going to hear a little music from Jon McDonald, who is our next guest. We'll be right back here on the left end of your dial with Live from the Heartland for the week of February 11th. Okay, we're back. We're back with more Live from the Heartland. I'm Michael James. I'm here in Chicago, and we're bringing on a friend of ours who I met him at the Heartland Cafe. He was on the show maybe 10 years ago. The one, the only Jon McDonald, a folk and blues historian and a great musician, played with a lot of people. How are you today there, Jon?
Well, I'm doing good. Promoting my namesake.
Aha. Oh, McDonald's. How about you? You got some free passes to McDonald's these days?
Drop that iron.
So
no senior,
I was
no
reading
senior discount.
That's good. Get the senior discount. So you were the band leader and the rhythm guitarist for Magic Slim. Magic Slim and the Teardrops, I think, for about 13 years. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into music, and what you did with Magic Slim?
Okay. Got into music early in my life, like right around 10 years old, like everybody else, hearing the Beatles and stuff. And all of a sudden I said I wanted to do that. I wanted to be the fifth Beatle. But seriously, I just like a lot of people of our generation, we all had guitars, and I think everybody learned at least one or two tunes, but I took it a step farther and just kept with it all my life, and different bands, and I've always wanted to play in a blues band, so I stuck it out and wound up with a lot of different people in my younger years, right after college, on to the Chicago blues community, into the blues community, as it were, back in the day, and kind of worked my way up right up to the present. And I joined Magic Slim. Well, before that, I was with like Dietrich Farr, Valerie Wellington, Casey Jones, Hip Link Chain, smattering of other artists, including Big Daddy Kinsey and the Kinsey Report, and worked with Hubert Sumlin and the Myers Brothers, just about everybody that was in Chicago, and kind of based myself out of blues and the Kingston Mines, the two, premier Northside clubs of the day. And, of course, the Mines is still around. Unfortunately, blues is no longer in action, but did my thing, and right up to the present, I have a CD coming out very soon called Stealing It Back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're good.
Okay, good.
We can hear those McDonald's kids in the background too.
I'll snatch their McDonald privileges away from them. But anyway,
let me ask you. You went to St. Michael's School, and if you had gone to public school, you would have gone to Waller, but that was down near Old Town. And I got to know people from St. Michael's School when we were in Rising Up Angry, and we were organizing the young greasers who hung out at Gas for Less and went. They were the core, the Hudsons, the Mohawks, the North Park, etc. And they call themselves core. They all went to North Park. Not North Park. What am I saying? St. Michael's.
Yeah, they did go to St. Michael's. In fact, right across the street from St. Michael's, there was this building. And on top of the building was this beer bottle that somebody stuck right on the roof. And it was a beer bottle that sat there for years. But that was something that somebody from Core had set there. Going by there a few years ago and looked up to the beer bottle wasn't there anymore. They should have left it.
Back in those early days, there was a club called Big John's.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing both. I think I saw Butterfield in there, but I did see Steve Miller. He was out of Texas via Madison.
Right.
And, it was back in the summer of like 64 or something, and a little before your time, but that was a little hotbed of music. And talk a little bit more though about what led you to how did you meet Magic Slim? I guess his whole name is Magic Slim Holt, and you
Nick.
traveled the world for
Morris.
13 years with him.
Yeah. One quick thing I want to say about Steve Miller. He lived on North Mohawk, 1400 North Mohawk, and Rick Howard, who played in the band with me, was his drummer for many years. They used to play a club on Sedgwick. I forgot the name of the club, but again, before my time. But why would I know these things? But Magic Slim, I joined the band. I'd known him for years, but I joined the group to do a tour I was supposed to leave for Denmark on September 11th, 2001. We didn't make it off the ground.
Right.
Tour got canceled, but we picked it up in 2003. And from 2003 until 2012, I must have toured Denmark and other countries in Scandinavia almost a dozen times. Like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, been all over the place, especially Denmark. It's like touring Evanston. It's that small.
Did you like touring, going on the road where you're playing one place after the other? I've got a couple of sons who are in bands. One of them is Hal, the engineer, and he didn't like touring. And my son, Kadian, who was in Twin Peaks, he got tired of touring. Where were you at? Did it for 13 years or more.
When I look back on it, I enjoyed it. There were some aspects about touring I didn't like. For example, you get to some place, you play, you're having a great time, go to your room, eat a little bit, 3 hours later, you're on the road again. I didn't like that part of it. Being on the road, of course, you'd have your fractious moments with members of the band. When I look back on it now, because just about everybody, not everybody is gone, but that particular unit no longer exists, along with Magic Slim, BJ, Brian Jones, Andre Howard, Michael Blakemore, the tour manager, and he also produced a couple of Slim's recordings before everybody passed, and Slim himself. So that whole unit is no longer with us, but we had our moments. But I missed them all.
Who taught you the most? I mean, what did you learn from some of the blues men and even women who came before you?
What did I learn the most?
Yeah, who taught you something that's worth sharing?
Well, they all did, but I'd say the most practical advice that I got would say, for example, Lefty Diz, who I played with for a while. He actually helped me to tour Europe on my own. He couldn't do all. He was splitting his time up between Switzerland and Paris. Paris is where he was diagnosed with cancer, and I did, the Swiss gigs for him, or the Swiss tours for him. But he actually put me on the road. But he gave me one particular bit of advice: do not discuss race, politics, and religion.
See, I would just be the opposite. I would say, get into all of that.
Yeah. my better nature would be, be the recalcitrant, rising up angry.
Who are your favorite musicians who influenced your actual playing the most?
My favorite musicians would be Louis Myers, Dave Myers, Hubert Sumlin, Smokey Smothers, Casey Jones, Robert Covington, and Bonnie Lee, who I really adored because we used to have fun on stage together, and learned a lot. I'd say, working with female, vocalists like Big Time Sarah, Valerie Wellington, Dietrich Fire, Lavelle White. You learn how to adapt, to each particular artist style. Coco Taylor, even who I worked with for a couple of weeks in January of 1984, before she had that accident in Kentucky. And, they're all stalwarts and they all have a particular style. And I would just try to adapt to, to the way they play. Even now with some of the current female players, everybody has a way of doing a particular song. That's where I'm at.
What do Jon McDonald, what is the status of blues today? In Chicago, around the country, or even around the world? I'm thinking back to my early days of, certainly I was listening to Jimmy Reed and, a lot of people real early. But then when I came to Chicago, the first show I actually went to was probably in '62 at a place called the Fat Black Pussycat. It was on Broadway, just north of where the Clark and Broadway split at Diversey. And it was I was there, a math professor from Lake Forest took me there, and it was Muddy Waters and James Cotton and some white kids. And I think it was Corky Siegel and Jim Schwall. And that was the first I started seeing a lot of the white kids playing the blues and getting involved. And I wondered if that's still the case today, or are African Americans, certainly there's plenty of African Americans doing the blues, but I wondered how that's playing out. Is it a universal music now? Everybody's playing it, or do they have to experience some dire situation to sing the tune correctly?
I would say, as you said, dire situation to sing the tune correctly, which I'm kind of mentoring a couple of people. I said, if you're going to sing this music, sing it right. And I said, if you really want to know you're singing it right, go to a black club and see, where you stand. Where the music is now is you have a lot of white kids wanting to play the blues, but it's not like our generation where it was new to a younger generation back in the day, but they were nailing it. They were more attentive to the artists, to a lot of the artists from the South, like Big Joe Williams, even Reverend Gary Davis, even Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. There was more respect towards the older generation of musicians. There was a lot to learn, but I think we all had that same value system, show respect towards your elders, regardless of their race and color. Now, nobody has no respect for us.
I don't know if it's disrespectful to share this, but I remember being at Grinnell College in sometime 60 or 61. And blind Reverend Gary Davis was there, and he was blind.
Right.
But then I saw him pinch a young woman on the you-know-where.
Oh, really?
And so I realized that some guys who are blind are maybe not all blind, but that was the only time I saw the blind Reverend Gary Davis.
Oh, I bet it. Well, you can call me blind Jon McDonald, and if you see me...
Can't do that anymore.
No. Well, I have a friend who calls me, blind John Rabinowitz,
Where are you playing these days? Where would people go and see you? And what are some good, you mentioned black blues clubs. Tell me where they are, what they are, and what blues clubs are around in general. Because as I get older, I'm feeling a greater urge to go out at night and hear music.
Well, the only blues club that I would subscribe to, that's all, well, actually two, predominantly black. And one of my favorite, venues in Chicago would be the Waterhole, 1400 Southwestern. And the thing that I like about the Waterhole, the audience is predominantly black, but the owner, I forgot what they call him, Tony, I think his name is. He likes a variety. He balanced it out, with white musicians and black musicians, and they run a jam session there on Wednesdays, run by Laureen every other Wednesday. And she's well connected with, the water hole and does her thing around town. There's a club in Chicago Heights called LaVue on South Halsted near Route 30. And you get more of a good mix, And I think there's another place that called the Odyssey Room. But, and mainly stay up north, like where I'm playing at, or kind of made it my home base when I do play there. Fuller's Pub at 3203 West Irving Park, and played there with the band. Dean Haas is a well-known blues drummer in Chicago. Occasionally Mike Sharf, who plays with a lot of different people. Mark Vavra, who plays keyboards. And recent addition to the band is Scott Safro. And he does a lot of the singing, and we split it up and we play blues, but we kind of get into a different vibe with different things. We take you back to the 60s a little bit.
What's the name of that club on 3203 Irving?
Fuller's, Full.
And what about Roses? Are they doing blues and out there?
Still doing blues. In fact, I just did a project with John Primer. It's billed as John Primer and the Teardrops, and it's a tribute to Magic Slim. And there will be a release of a DVD, CD of that concert that we did at Roses on November 28th last year. And it'll be in CD and DVD form, and that will be released on the 22nd of February.
And let me ask you, John, what nights are you at Fuller's?
Well, I try to be there on Wednesday nights. They have an open mic night, and I usually sit in the back, just hanging out, but I'll do a few songs, here and there and stuff like tonight. I'll be there and I'll, sit in and play and stuff. But it's a wonderful little club, small, good audience.
We had a woman on a couple of weeks ago with a children's tune. I think Ivy, let's see if I get her name right. Ivy Ford. Is she playing on Roses? And is she a young blues singer?
I don't know a lot about her except what I've heard, like on another radio show, and stuff. But I really don't know. I just know of her.
How about someone we had on recently, Win Knoll, and the blues, what are they called? The Blues Survivors, I think.
I know Win Knoll. Yeah.
These are younger women who are singing the blues.
Yeah. Now, Win Knoll I know, and I know the members of her band, and, nice lady, good talented players, and she was recent winner of a contest at Buddy Guy's, and her and the band, wish her a lot of best of success and stuff.
But Jon McDonald with a Jon. If people are looking to find you got to do the Jon.
Yeah, don't J-O-H.
About a minute left, maybe two. How about you sharing with us anything you want us to know about the blues, about you, about life? Put it out there, brother.
All right. I'll stick with the music, regardless what the big wigs in the music industry is trying to shove down our throats. Stuff that, the music that we grew up with, it's traditional, it's about life. Stick with that because, you may think you're playing the music at 20, but think what it'll mean to you when you're 30, 40, and 50. And when we're all gone, the younger generation has a responsibility like we have, keep it going, keep it flowing, and tell your story.
Well, that's good. So the next time we could see you is on a Wednesday night at Fuller's on Irving Park Road.
Hanging out and, doing a couple of numbers and stuff. I'll probably play a few songs from my upcoming CD, which is ready for pressing, and I hope to have it ready by, near the end of March. And I will be doing a tour in Switzerland in the latter part of May into June, and I'll be working around town.
Okay, Jon McDonald, you keep us in the loop because I'm ready to go out at night in my old age here.
Okay, hopefully I'll get them damn teeth. Yeah.
You're doing good, brother.
Yeah,
it's
I
great
feel
to
authentic
see
now. Yeah.
Okay, you've been listening to the Live from the Heartland show. This is for the week of February 11th.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for coming on, man.
And thank you, Lynn Norman, as well.
I was getting to thanking Lynn right now because this show, it wouldn't be possible if there wasn't for people like Lynn Orman, Katy Hogan, Hal James, Tom Clark. We've had a lot of wonderful people coming on, and I want to thank you, Jon McDonald. I want to thank Don Rose for coming on today, and for Katy Hogan to stepping aside for a few minutes from her busy work trying to re-elect Alderman Haddon here in the 49th Ward to come on and have her old seat back at the Live from the Heartland show. So we'll be back next week. It'll be we record on Wednesday for the Saturday in the week of February 18th. I'm not sure who we're having on yet, except I know we'll have Don Rose back on talking about the election. Chewy's people say that they're trying to figure a time we can do that. And it's getting loud over at McDonald's there. So I'm going to say, keep doing good in the world, everybody. The world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that John does, that Hal does, all of us. All power to the people.